Hey, Matt here, and today I'm going to tell you how you can use the game of creativity for schools. Right, so a lot of what was made here with the game of creativity was developed for school-age children, about 6th grade and higher. It can be used a little bit lower, but wasn't necessarily designed for certain concepts that might be good for less than 6th grade. So let's go ahead and kind of jump into this, right? So we have two volumes. We have volume 1 and volume 2. And again, we're going to walk into this assuming that you're going to use this for your classroom. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the cards here. So this right here is volume 1. Volume 1 and volume 2 are both available on thegameofcreativity.com, and you can also get them in bulk for classrooms. If you go to the link at the top called For Schools, you'll see more information about that. So let's go ahead and dive into this. Now, volume 1, which I also call the ingredient cards, is essentially connection points for students to be able to, basically the idea of creativity is combining unlike ideas, 2 or more unlike ideas, and it helps them kind of get there. The other benefit that this has is it teaches kids that it's totally cool to have bad ideas and to have a lot of ideas, right? And to explore a little bit more. I think kids are inherently like that. But at a certain point in their child lives, in their childhood, in their early in school maybe, I think that they're kind of taught that having a lot of different ideas isn't necessarily a good thing. Whenever they're taught things like math and science and history, things have one answer. And I think that whenever our school systems revolve around those things, it's, it kind of makes sense that whenever they go to art class, they believe that there's just one answer for things. But anyway, so essentially what the idea is of volume 1 here is, again, to provide these connection points. So there's things like code, thin lines, food, Pollock, sad, light, mirrors, organic shapes, basic shapes, small. Now all of these, again, are just connection points. The real special thing happens when you combine more than one of these things. So like, let's say they're trying to, I don't know, it depends on what your class is, but like, let's say it's a design or art class, and then they draw these cards, and then they have to try to think of a creative idea like that. So in this case right here, this might be an easier one, where it's small and basic shapes. So maybe they have to create something based on like a certain time period. Maybe they're doing cubist cubism period. So maybe they'll do some basic shapes, but also do them small on the page. That's kind of the easiest way to look at it. Now, how you can use the Game of Creativity Volume 1 with your students is a lot of different ways. So one, just like I showed you. So maybe you have some sort of project in mind. Maybe it's even like a geometry class or something. Again, you can use this in every single class. I think the easiest way is to use this in an art or some sort of creative class that they might have. But you give them some sort of problem that they're trying to solve. And that's important. They need to have some sort of goal that they're trying to, some sort of target that they're trying to achieve. And it can't just be it needs to look pretty. Again, it could be something like time periods. Like if in your art class you are talking about, I don't know, the Renaissance period, and you say, okay, now we're going to make something like that. Like maybe show them a few examples of some of the great works, and then pull these cards out, and then hold on a second, let me shuffle a little bit. And then you can flip 2 cards over, and then be like, okay, now paint and liquid. So maybe like that's what you give them, and that's really interesting actually. Like maybe this could lead to something more like watercolors. Like don't make those kind of stipulations on what they can and can't use. Only give them that problem that they're trying to solve. So maybe like they're not going to make something that's exactly like Renaissance related, because they mostly used some sort of oils, I'm pretty sure. And there wasn't much liquid-based stuff going on, I don't think, at that point. But like I'm thinking of like watercolors, and like what if they had to use materials and paints from one time period and apply to another. That's interesting. I mean, that could be a good idea for even you as a teacher to to use these cards to figure out assignments. They can be used in a ton of different ways. So one way that I like to do this would be, okay, let's put these cards back. Would be like, okay, so like let's say you have a class of 20 kids, 20 students, and let's say you have a project that you would normally give them. Maybe it's like still life stuff, and maybe you set up a scene in this table, and on a center table, all the kids are sitting around it. And instead of just making them draw that thing, they have to apply one card, maybe, to this. Maybe you draw just one card for everybody, paper. So like maybe they have to draw a still life as if it's all made out of paper instead of, just drawing it with pencil. Or another way could be doing something like every student gets their own card. So you go around the classroom, each student gets a certain card. You can do as many as you want there, and based on that, everybody's should look similar, but they're going to be different at the same time. And I guess I believe that promoting individuality in schools and with students is a very important thing. So I think that if students aren't necessarily comparing what they did to other people's, I think that's a really good thing. To where almost everybody's artwork becomes kind of a piece in it, like the whole class's artwork becomes a single piece. It's like they're all working together in something rather than just all trying to make exactly the same thing. I don't know. I guess comparing apples to apples may not be as effective as comparing apples to oranges. I don't know. So again, this is just one way you can do this. You can pull out these cards, and maybe people have to try to guess what the card was afterwards, and it makes it a little bit more interactive for students and a little bit more fun. Because there's so many different ways that they can do this, but I don't know. I guess the thing is, they can be wrong. Like there is no right or wrong answer for how they'd choose to kind of implement the card with the brief or the problem or the project that they're trying to solve. So another thing that you can do is even have them start swapping cards with each other. Like maybe it's a timed kind of thing. So where like the first 5 minutes of this still life drawing, they have one card, but then maybe you give them new cards at a certain point. So now they have to integrate a new thing on top of that thing that they were already doing. And it's going to be different, but it's going to be really interesting. And I think that a lot of kids would have a lot of fun with that. So that's just a couple of different ways that you can use these cards with a classroom, with a sort of project like that. And there are a ton of other ways that you can use these cards in your class. I believe that if you were to hand these cards to students, they would find a weird way to do things by themselves. It's really just to get them thinking in areas that they weren't previously thinking about. So now you can also use Volume 2 with your class. Let's go ahead and take a look at Volume 2. Now these are what I call problem cards. Again, these are designed at a 6th grade and up level. Some of the problems, I don't believe that they're inappropriate, but some younger kids just might not understand what the problem actually is. Things like, since the existence of humans, there are 46% less trees on Earth. Now, sort of like I was saying earlier, creativity is kind of based in a problem. They need to have some sort of problem that they are trying to solve. With these cards, they have the problem that they're trying to solve. So what you can do, depending on what your class is, and I think this can work in a lot of different classes, again, part of what I believe is that we should be promoting creativity in all classes, not just art classes. What I might do is, if I was in the classroom, had about 20 students or so again, I would flip over a card. Okay, only 21.6% of kids do 60 minutes of physical activity per day. Now, there's a lot of different ways to tackle this problem, and we're not trying to solve it 100%, we're just trying to solve it 0.0001%. Even if we can do that, that's still successful of contributing to a solution to a problem. So again, depending on what the class is, again, for this purpose here, let's say it's art class. So let's say that the project is, okay, you have 10 minutes to try to figure out a solution to how we can get more kids to do 60 minutes of activity per day. Maybe this even becomes kind of a localized effort. Maybe it's just something like, okay, now how do we get more students in just our school to play for 60 minutes a day? And to get like kind of more running around time. Like, yeah, there's gym class, but like, how do you do that more? Like maybe it starts some sort of competition. In math class, maybe it's, okay, we're going to add up how many miles everyone runs each day. I don't think most kids run miles, but it could be something like how many minutes they did physical activity the previous night, and being able to do something with those numbers. And in science, it might be something like understanding what's happening to your body a little bit more whenever you do those kinds of things, like physical activity. In a creative or art class or design class, maybe it's, let's design the posters to try to help solve this problem. But one of the big things that I would do is set some sort of time limit on it. Maybe it's a day, maybe it's a week, maybe it is 10 minutes. But if you give them a certain amount of time to try to solve this problem and you tell them up front how much time they have, you will see their minds work at an incredibly fast rate. And again, like, we have several cards here, and each one with 56 different real-world problems. Women are paid 20% less than men. That would be a really interesting one to have, especially in a 6th grade class, for kids to learn that, hey, this is a problem. Why is this a problem? And how can we solve it? And I think that you'll be amazed to see some of the ideas that students come up with to do this. Now, another thing that you can do is actually combine Volume 1 and Volume 2. So let's go ahead and talk about that real quick. First thing I'll do is, let's say you are in front of your 20-student class again, and what you do is you draw a single card. By 2030, technology could replace 375 million human jobs. So I think that that's a really interesting one, again, for students at a 6th grade and older level. Again, it could even be used easily in high schools or even colleges, but I tend to try to think about a little bit younger. So what you can do is you can draw that card, and then you can go around, so first you can take your Volume 1 set, and then you can draw a single card and tell your whole class, animals. So how can animals help solve that problem? It could be something like, hey, robots and technology they don't have the empathy to raise animals. It could be something like that. It could be something else, but it's really up to each student to kind of decide how they want to try to solve that problem with an animal. So the other thing that you can do is maybe every single student in the class gets a different card. So now they're each going to have a very, very different solution to that problem. And now, whenever students start talking about amongst themselves, like, hey, here's how I got to try to solve it. For some, it's going to be hard, and for some, it's going to be easy. But for none of them will it be wrong. And again, I think that's the most important part about teaching creativity, is that there cannot be a wrong answer necessarily. There's certainly going to be better ideas than others, but the best part about this is that there is no wrong answer. Again, if they are making even the slightest dent in solving this problem, then they are successful. And I think that's such an important thing for kids to learn. So that's how I'd use the cards for schools. Again, if you want to know more information, you can go on the For Schools tab of thegameofcreativity.com, and you can also place your order for as many cards as you'd like to get for your class, for your school. We also offer discounts for bulk quantities. We also offer an additional discount if you are a school. So check that out. If you have any questions, you can send an email to hello@thegameofcreativity.com. Thanks. Bye.